Okay, awesome, wonderful. So we're about to begin. This is going to be the next to last information session for the Robotics Institute Summer Scholars. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in and make sure that everything is set. And we'll go from there. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to hear a little bit of feedback just for a moment as we get things adjusted. Okay, so just 1 second here. Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Rachel Burson. I'm with the Robotics Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. We have about 35 people that are joining us right now to hear a little bit more about the Summer Scholar Program. I am joined by one of our alums who has done amazing work with the Autonomy Lab. And Willow, would you like to say hello to the students and potential applicants that are joining us?
Sure, Ms. Brissing. Hi, everyone. My name is Willa Potosnak. I'm a senior biomedical engineering major at Duquesne University, which is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And as Ms. Burstein said, I participated in the riss program twice, actually. So once in 2020 and another time in 2021. And I worked in the Autonomy Lab for both of those programs.
And the Autonomy Lab is filled with really good friends and lots of amazing research. You're going to get to hear a little bit about that later. There's been some really great questions that have been added to our meeting pulse. And so the way that today will work is that throughout the session, you can upvote questions and you can add questions to the meeting link that was included. So we'll dive in. I'd like to provide a little bit of background about the Summer Scholar Program to give us some context. Then Willow will jump in and share some of her experience, and then we'll go deep into some of those questions. So let's go ahead and get started and see what questions seem to really resonate with folks today, and we'll go from there. So a little bit about the Summer Scholar Program and why it's a special opportunity is the community and where it is. It's really about being in Pittsburgh with Carnegie Mellon University and with the Robotics Institute. And there is such an amazing group of researchers that are coming together. It's really a lot of top ranked programs around technology, ranked #1 for computer science, the first robotics academic department in the world, first PhD in robotics, the same thing for machine learning, so many different areas. Human computer interaction is, there's a lot of innovation and just pioneering efforts around robotics and related fields. And so much of it is happening here in Pittsburgh. So when you come and you are participating in the riss program, and this year, I'm happy to tell you that we're going to be in person, and this is going to be awesome. So we've had 2 summers that have been remote, and it was enormous and wonderful efforts by the entire team and the community to continue and to create those opportunities for students to engage and learn about research and work with us. But to be in person and to get to see and do more is really what we're looking forward to this summer. So we hope that you'll be able to join us, and let's talk a little bit about what the Summer Scholar Program is and the experience, and let's dive in and hear directly from Willa. So when you think about the Summer Scholar Program, there's 3 pieces of it that I'd like you to really keep in mind. And the first is about that guided research. So you'll be working with the lab and on a specific project, and you're really going to go deep on that project. You're also going to have the possibility to participate, and there's different types of professional development that is provided. And finally, we come together as a community. So let's talk about the research opportunities. On the RIS website, you'll see there's a research showcase. It has posters, videos, and a journal. That's the foundation for the research project. So the research projects that summer scholars are doing are additive. They're building from prior work and expanding that knowledge there. So one of the top questions we always get is, how do I really shape my application? Well, you look at that research. What is the foundation of research? That's your very first job in getting ready to apply, is looking at the posters, the videos, and the journal. What prior research projects are there that are of interest and that you could add to? When we talk about the professional development, you'll see some of those products that I just talked about. So each scholar that comes through, we talk a lot about being able to communicate research results. And so during the RIS program, you're trying to learn and practice and develop a lot of the skills that you'll need as a scientist, whether in industry or in academia as a grad student. So we look at how to shape and develop a paper for a journal. We actually look at that process of, how do you do peer reviews? How do you put together a journal? All of this is practice and intentional to develop a set of skills. We have a series of robotics talks that are to expose you to broader applications and areas in robotics. We have workshops that are about communicating to different audiences, and there are deliverables that are about the poster, that are about the video. So you are learning and practicing how to present your research results to a number of different audiences and in different formats. This is something that's going to be really important for your entire life. When we're in person, we also get to visit labs, we get to visit industry, we get to really expand and expose you beyond just those talks to other possibilities in robotics. What is it like? So you're able to really contextualize, where are your interests? How do they place? What's the future of those fields? Then when we look at the community, this is what I think really wraps it and brings it together. And I think Willow would agree, the Auton Lab is incredible. They're absolutely an incredible group of people. And that experience as a scholar, when you're trying to learn the process, is it's hard. It can be overwhelming, and you need that mentorship. And so there's mentors in the lab, and there's also those that are within the cohort that come together to try to shape that experience. A couple essentials as you go forward. June 1st through August 5th will be in person in Pittsburgh. Scholars must be here for the entire length of the program. And this is taken a snapshot that is taken from the RIS website. And I'd really like you to drill in and kind of look a little bit closer at the hints and help. So the number one thing under hints to successful application, it starts off with a research showcase. So the best thing that you can do to shape your application is to show evidence that you've carefully reviewed prior research, because you're building from that. That's what scholars do, is they're usually building from prior research that's been done. There's existing projects and you're building from that. So that's the first step, is to do that. The next is to look and learn a little bit more about those mentors and the projects, right? And learn about the labs that there. So go back. Because we were virtual in the last 2 years, the projects might have been just a little bit different. So I would really say go back several years, at least 3 years, to look at the research that was done. From that, once you identify areas of interest and papers, and go and read the papers that were written by the summer scholars, that will give you an idea of the research done by prior undergraduate students with the Summer Scholars Program. There's a list of mentors. These are the mentors that usually participate or are anticipating participating in the upcoming year. Not everyone at Carnegie Mellon is part of the RIS program. There's a select community that comes together. There's some additional guidance there, but in essence, think about your statement of purpose as really laying out what you'd like to do, how you'd like to contribute. Your resume should be 2 pages or less. It should really present your skill set and some prior experience. If you've not done research before, maybe it's talking about research projects. Your recommendations are very important. Your recommendation should be from an academic that can speak to your research ability. This could be someone that you've had as a course instructor, but is better if you've done some one-on-one work with that individual's team. So have you worked with that faculty member on research or an extended project or a competition? There's lots of questions about, can I participate as an international student? Absolutely. And there's lots of paths to do that. And we'll talk more with the international applicants that are selected about the next steps there. So there's no problem about participating if you're an international student in the program. We've actually hosted students from over 70 countries, home countries. So it's really awesome. And each year we anticipate that there's somewhere between 10 or more different home countries. So it's a global community that's bringing people together. We cannot wait to be in person. There's so many fun things that we can do when we're in person. We may be wearing masks this summer. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's so great just to have that opportunity to see and explore and visit. And we also share out what we're doing. Each one of these students is a PhD student that's funded through the School of Computer Science for their work. Mentioned before, there's a journal. That journal is for the scholars. That is to help them with products so that they can get into the best graduate programs, the best internships, that it really opens up futures for them. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and I am going to turn it over to my colleague. I'm going to ask her to share a little bit about her experience and as a summer scholar. And Willa, if you'd like to share screen as well or some background, you're welcome to do so.
Hey, thanks, Ms. Burstein. I was thinking of just speaking for this session, but as Ms. Burstein mentioned, I worked in the Autonomy lab and I participated in the riss program for the past 2 summers. For people unfamiliar with the Autonomy lab, it uses machine learning and statistical analysis and data mining in order to analyze and model data. And it works on addressing applications or challenges for different fields. So it addresses challenges within healthcare, it addresses the challenges to try and prevent human trafficking. It also even extends to try and prevent maintenance issues for military-run vehicles. So it has a really wide scope of all the research projects it's involved in. In particular, I was involved in a lot of the healthcare research for the lab. And as Ms. Burstein said, the research and the mentorship is just phenomenal at the lab. And the entire lab is extremely supportive in your research. If you can't have, if your mentor is busy, there's always available people in the lab to answer your questions and provide help, but everyone is always available to help you within the lab. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in machine learning or artificial intelligence, to check out the Autonomy lab online. They have an online website, and also look at Google Scholar for previous publications that fall under the mentor of Dr. Arthur Dabrowski. And so you can read up on what's been previously done in the lab to try and see if the research would be something you'd be interested in pursuing in the future or like to pursue in the riss program. And if you are interested in pursuing machine learning or AI, I would recommend in your application if they have an option to select like a research focus, as I did when I applied, to select machine learning or artificial intelligence there. So as I mentioned, I participated in the riss program in 2020. And I liked working in the lab so much that I stayed in the Autonomy lab for a second summer in 2021. So for the first summer, I worked on a project, particularly with an application for healthcare. I'm very interested in the healthcare field for my future career. And I'd like to focus on, how can we improve models for predicting patient outcomes in healthcare. So for the first summer, I worked on a project to develop models that will predict patient outcomes, such as renal failure, prolonged ventilation, mortality even, for patients. And we were trying to understand whether if we use data that was recorded during a surgery can we use this data to improve models that would predict the risk of a certain healthcare outcome? And that's extremely important because if clinicians or healthcare experts can identify the particular risk of an outcome, then they can take certain measures to try and prevent these poor outcomes for patients. And so these models can really actually help save lives when applied in practice. And so that was what I worked on for the first summer in riss. For the second summer, I worked on a project that also had a healthcare application. So for this project, the main goal was to try and identify if we can share knowledge between healthcare centers. So the idea is that certain healthcare centers may specialize within certain patient populations or certain practices. And if we can share this information, can we improve hospital practices and improve patient outcomes across these healthcare sites? And so my research mostly focused on trying to develop machine learning models that will predict outcomes for patients, and then trying to share these between centers or healthcare sites, and identifying which patients will particularly benefit from the application of certain risk models. So which patients would receive more accurate outcome predictions and from which models? And that's extremely important because if we can identify which models work best for which patients, we can build more useful models and again have more accurate predictions in their outcomes and better treat these patients to prevent poor outcomes. So that's a very quick overview of what I've been working on in the lab for the past 2 years. It's a great experience, and if you're interested in research, I would highly recommend applying to the riss program and getting involved in research. If you're unsure about research, I would still recommend applying because this program will really help you explore the different fields that are available within robotics and help you navigate whether research is the correct path for you, if you would prefer to go into an industry career. And it'll also help you narrow focus on which fields you'd like to go into. For example, I am a biomedical engineering major, but through the riss program, I was exposed to machine learning and artificial intelligence, and I've actually shifted more of my career focus to the AI and machine learning field. I'll actually be applying, or I have applied to graduate programs for computer science. So through the riss program, it's opened my eyes to the different fields that are possible, and it's actually changed some of my career focus. And so I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity, which has basically shifted my future career goals.
And Rilla, we've really enjoyed working with you and with so many others. And as I hear about your experiences, the research and the way you came in, many applicants or students out there might think about, okay, I've not really done research, or I haven't had a lot of background in AI. And you've shared your journey, right? And what you're doing now and that growth. But when you came in, were you also unsure of your background or your preparation as well?
Definitely. I had one research experience coming into riss, and that was for a topic completely different than machine learning and artificial intelligence. It was for basically 3D printing and trying to improve assistive technology. So, a different field than what I had gone into the program for. And I had basically a very basic understanding of machine learning. I had, read up on the topic. I had watched some tutorials on how it works and how to apply Python for its purpose. But through the riss program, I had learned so much. I came out of the program having a much firmer understanding of the Python programming language and how to apply that for data processing, data analytics. It was truly an exceptional and just amazing experience that I learned so much from.
I think we have some of the best mentors, and it's part of that process. So riss is really about a learning experience and coming together. And when we think about riss as the learning experience that we want it to be, it kind of drives and makes us understand some of the pillars of the program, like the outcomes, the professional development. It's all about learning and doing it together. There's so much that we have to accomplish. I think, Willa, every summer I look at and we look together at the journals from previous years and we say, will we be able to do this again? Will this happen? But it comes together. And I know that students come in at the beginning of the program, they're like, I'm never going to be able to write that. And we even have those points of crisis toward the end where people are saying, I can't write this, or I'm stuck. And that's where the community comes together. And so we think about the learning outcomes. We think about trying to launch into robotics and AI. There's a process to this, and it's really about coming here and being with some of the top minds of the world, and they're thrilled to participate. And it's really exciting to see the growth over time. And so the top question is like, how can I boost my chance, or how do I shape my application? And I think and people are saying, what are we looking for? We're looking for students that are really passionate. We're looking for students that have really taken advantage of as many opportunities as they could at their home university. Like you were saying, you didn't have a robotics or an AI research experience before coming here, but you were able to tell us about a prior research or a project that you had and go forward with that. There are always questions about, can international students apply? Yep. If you're an international student attending school in the US, great. If you're an international student attending at your home country or a second or third country, that's fine as well. There's a process and ways to support that. So don't worry about barriers there. We'll work with the students that are selected for admissions. There was questions about, are we doing our own projects, or is there some kind of support? Like, how does this come together? I would say that, and I'm going to ask you, Willa, to maybe speak with this, because you had two different experiences with the same lab, but it's really customized for your preparation and where you are at that time and growing there. So you're not coming in and having to come up with an entirely novel experience. I think it's really customized to what is your level of preparation? What is prior opportunities that you have? How can we leverage those? And what are the needs of the labs and the projects and putting that together? So would you say that your experience in the project was different in the level of complexity and maybe your autonomy in the first year compared to the second year? What was that like for you?
I think your statement summarizes it very well, but coming into the program, they had assigned me a project that had healthcare applications because they had seen my background work with assistive technology, and they knew my interest within the healthcare field, which was excellent. And I was definitely passionate about that project. And so based on my lab experience, they'll try to assign you a project based on, your particular interests and also your skill level. And so they gave me a project in which it was still challenging, but it wasn't completely out of the bounds of what I was able to comprehend or accomplish as a beginner in machine learning. Shifting to the second summer, there is more flexibility in what I was able to pursue as a project. So this was left a little more open in terms of what was the objective for the project and how I would achieve that particular objective.
There's another really good question that I think that you can speak to, and about experiences. So we see that over time, your autonomy grows because you're understanding the lab and the project, and that you're able to contribute in different ways. And that's part of the growth and the development and what we value in learning. And so a question that we often hear is that, am I able to continue to collaborate post-program? So is that possible? Is it not? How does that work from your experience? And I know each lab is a little bit different, but what has your experience been?
So as you said, each lab is different. From my experience in the Auton lab, I was fortunate enough that they would like me to continue on the project. And ever since my participation in the first summer, I've continued to collaborate with the lab on research. And in terms of collaboration, it started off by continuing research that I had performed during the summer and trying to improve that. And then it's also extended into different projects as well. So juggling multiple projects now where I'm at.
And one of the things about many of the labs, the Auton lab, like the Air lab, many of them, is that there's a number of riss alums that are in the graduate program. So you have students that, graduate students that maybe know a little bit about the program and the process. And when you're in that, trying to work through your first project definition or trying to write that first draft of the paper, they can empathize with that. And they're wonderful, wonderful mentors. I think that within the Auton Lab, we have, the Auton Lab has 5 alums, riss alums that are graduate students there, and that's amazing. So it really is about that community. And Willa, we're so thankful that you might consider coming to Carnegie Mellon and continuing on with your research. We'd love that to be a possibility for all of us. And that's one of the benefits, is to, if you did choose to come to, CMU and continue with the Auton Lab as a graduate student, there would already be a network of friends, a network of mentors, and 5 students that have gone through the same program that has been part of their process and development. But it's not only about Carnegie Mellon. So we know that post-program, we introduce you to other universities, and we continue to work together on refining research results and trying to work together. It's really about, how do we together help you launch into robotics? How are you positioned for a number of different possibilities? And so when we're thinking about the learning experience that way, we need to bring in students that we see that have connected to the prior projects, that can see where they can contribute, can help us understand what skills they might have, whether or not they've done full research projects. And there are students that are definitely, it's after their freshman year, right? And or had you just completed, you applied for riss the first time, was it your 3rd semester of your undergraduate? You were a sophomore when you applied the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and considering where you were then to now, it's just a world of difference, right? And we know, and this is a process, and it's a journey. So let's look at a couple of those other questions. So we're going to go through a few of the questions that are over on a Meeting Pulse. Our deadline is coming up, so that will be happening very soon, is that applications will be closing on the 15th. So there are a number of mentors that are listed on the riss website. I would really go to look at the prior Robotics Institute Summer Scholars research experiences to understand what might be possibilities. There are scholarships for every student that is selected, that is a consideration. So there's lots of different possibilities there. And it's not tied to only, I know there are some RU programs that are only for US students. This is a global program for both US and international students. And we invite you to dive in to explore a little bit more. Willa, if you wanted to help someone orient themselves to the application and really how to go forward, what would your sort of parting words for those that are joining us today? How would you like to, maybe guide them?
I would say for your application, I'd say definitely focus on your statement of purpose. That's definitely very important. Review previous research in the labs you're interested in to make sure your research interests align with what's going on in the lab, and highlight that in your SOP. I even mentioned in my SOP, I was really interested in this particular project because of these particular reasons, and I thought I could improve upon these particular aspects of it. And just showing your motivation and your ability to improve previous work will, if that shows through, that'll be a key factor in the decision process.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up here, this recording will be available for viewing later. There are lots of resources on the riss website to help you go forward and to really dive into those projects. My top advice is really to tell your story and connect those stories to where you'd like to be and contribute within the riss summer. And so that means looking at the research and understanding that. My number one probably thing to avoid would be to write a general, what I call like a Dear Professor letter, which is like, oh, I love robotics. I saw maybe a Star Wars movie or something like that. And we get a lot of those. We actually get a lot of those. With not having looked at the specific research, you may be applying to many different internships, but for riss, it really needs to your application to stand out. If that's your goal, it needs to be connected to the research that's been done here that you want to build from. So I encourage everyone to really dive into that research, the showcase, and to see there. And also really, really tell us why you want to be part of a program as opposed to an internship. So riss is a program and a community and a cohort that's working together. Why are you more interested in doing that than maybe some other type of internship? And there's so much that you can do and learn from this community, and we want to do it together. It's a very dynamic, innovative community that is launching companies, that is driving innovation from very basic research all the way through commercialization and actually companies as well. So excited to have really a good group of folks joining us today, and we're looking forward to continuing conversations. There will be one more session, and then we look at the application. So excited to have you come back if you have any questions about shaping your application on the 14th.